What is up, guys? Rick Cacus here, and today we are going to be taking a look at some of the weapons in Destiny that you should definitely consider buying right now. Now that is because in only a few days, on March 28th, the next content offering for Destiny, the Age of Triumph, will launch. And Bungie has confirmed that with the Age of Triumph, a lot of the vendors that we know are now getting weekly vendor resets. So, all of the faction vendors in the tower, the Crucible vendors, the Vanguard vendors, all of those guys will actually get different perks on their weapons and armor every single week. Now, this is definitely some great news, and it's something that will get, I think, a lot of Destiny players excited to log on every week and to see who's selling what and if there's any god rolls. However, that does also mean that the current vendor weapon rolls, and there is some very good rolls, are going to be gone very soon. So this is your last chance to get to the tower and to buy the best existing rolls available right now, because there is no guarantee they will ever be available again, or at least not for several weeks. So let's get started. But before we do, guys, if you enjoy this content and want to see more, please remember to support the video by liking, commenting, and especially sharing. It's a simple thing to do, but it really does help me out, and I very much appreciate those of you who do it. So, what are my recommended guns that you should look into buying right now before they're gone? Now let's start out here with the faction vendors, beginning with Future War Cult. The number one weapon I would recommend buying here is the Wormwood Sidearm. Sidearms in general, and actually specifically the Wormwood, have been terrorizing the Crucible because of the recent special ammo changes that came with the previous weapons balance patch. Now, upcoming with the Age of Triumph, there's going to be another patch which is going to nerf sidearms by making it so that they're only going to spawn with 1 magazine's worth of ammunition after you die. However, I've seen how much damage 1 magazine's worth of the Wormwood can do, and it's still pretty potent. So sidearms are still likely to remain pretty top tier in the Crucible, and this Wormwood has essentially everything you want. It has high caliber rounds, staggers your opponent and adds a little bit more range, excellent for sidearms. It has a range increase with hand loaded, and lastly it has hidden hand, increasing your aim assist. So definitely consider buying this Wormwood. Now, aside from that, the one other weapon I would recommend looking at, not necessarily buying and definitely not as much as the Wormwood, is the Warpath being sold. It has tracking, a very good perk in both PvP and PvE. It also has heavy payload, increasing the already insane blast radius and allowing you to pick a ballistics that increases the velocity. All around, this is just a solid roll, and the reason I'm showing it off is because there's no guarantees you'll have a roll this good once the vendor inventories rotate. Now moving on to Dead Orbit, the number one weapon I would recommend buying here is the Last Ditch 001. This is an incredibly solid shotgun. It's right up there in terms of its impact and range archetype as the Matador 64, the scourge of the Crucible in the previous meta. Like, basically they had to nerf shotguns just because of that gun. And the Last Ditch is a pretty close second. It definitely isn't as good as a Godroll Matador 64, let's get that out of the way. But this one comes with, firstly, CQB ballistics, giving you a little bit of a range increase. Flared Magwell and Quickdraw are decent, but Hammer Forged is excellent, adding a pretty decent chunk of range to a shotgun that already has a pretty damn good starting range. And lastly, it has Rangefinder. The combination of Hammer Forged and Rangefinder is definitely no joke, and this weapon is just one perk hand loaded off from being the absolute god roll. So definitely consider buying this if you want a good PvP shotgun. If you don't already have one, much better to buy this extremely solid and use it, and then try to get a Matador 64, for example, from a Crucible drop. Now the other thing I would definitely take a look at is the Worlds to Come 001 Fusion Rifle. This thing has some pretty good perks. Enhanced Battery and Snapshot are both decent, Hammer Forged is excellent, and Hidden Hand is pretty good as well. If you're a fusion rifle enthusiast, this could be for you, but it's definitely not that amazing. Now moving on, lastly we have New Monarchy. The one weapon I would definitely recommend taking a look at is actually the Bad Counsel 4 shotgun. This is not a PvP role, so don't be expecting this thing to do well in PvP. However, if you're one of the many PvE players, this is a seriously deadly PvE shotgun role. Firstly, we've got extended magazine, getting it past a magazine of already 5 to 6 or 7, that's pretty insane. And then we have Hammer Forged, increasing the range to a very acceptable level. And lastly, we have full auto. So you're going to be running around with a 6-round full auto shotgun, and it's part of the favorable damage archetype for PvE. In PvE, you actually do want the shotguns to fire a little bit faster than their PvP counterparts. This is part of a faster firing damage archetype. So you can full auto open up and take down captains even in the raid, the Wrath of the Machine raid. You can whip this thing out and take down those captains so damn fast. So definitely take a look at this. Now moving on, we have the Crucible Quartermaster. Now this wouldn't be a video if I didn't recommend, of course, Big Daddy Palindrome. This is basically a god roll. This Palindrome has absolutely taken over the Crucible, and it could be your last chance to get a hand cannon this good from a vendor. It's got pretty good sights. Mulligan and Spray and Pray are both decent, probably Spray and Pray being the better one. And then we've got Rifled Barrel for a hand cannon that already has one of the best starting ranges out of any hand cannon in Destiny. And if that wasn't enough, we have Rangefinder. Again, this thing has been terrorizing the Crucible for the past several months, and actually hand cannons have only gotten better in the recent patch due to their first shot accuracy increase. They're getting a little bit of a range nerf, but considering this has one of the best ranges in the entire game, if hand cannons are getting a range nerf, you might as well use a hand cannon that has so much damn range you probably won't even notice. Seriously, if you haven't bought this Palindrome, get it. Now after that, there's definitely a couple of weapons I would recommend taking a look at. Firstly, the Hero Formula Scout Rifle. This belongs to the faster firing scout rifle archetype. There is a very small amount of these that are actually floating around and infusible, and this has a pretty solid role. Life support and who's next, probably life support being the better one of those perks. And most importantly, it has the much needed stability increase of Braced Frame. You need stability with this fast firing archetype, and Braced Frame is probably the best stability increasing perk you can get. And lastly, Third Eye is definitely not bad. So if you are a fan of these type of scout rifles, the Hero Formula comes with an absolutely solid role that you should check out. Now after that, definitely take a look at this 44 Curtain Call. It doesn't belong to the highest impact damage archetype. It's one below that. However, it has basically a god roll. Firstly, aggressive ballistics, increasing the impact pretty substantially, and accurized ballistics, increasing the impact and increasing the range a pretty damn big chunk. Then we've got Cascade, which is decent, Life Support, which is also decent, and Rifled Barrel, which is the best perk you're looking for in shotguns. And lastly, rounding it all off, we have Crowd Control, which is definitely, not as good as Rangefinder, but one of the better perks you can get with shotguns. This is an all-around very solid role for both PvE, because it kind of splits the difference between a high-powered shotgun and a fast-firing shotgun by being not the, slowest shooting archetype, and PvP. This thing is probably going to be pretty damn good if you use it in PvP. Again, it won't be top tier. You won't be able to compete with someone with a God Roll Matador, but it'll be pretty darn good. Now moving on, the last and unfortunately the least vendor we have to take a look at is the Vanguard Quartermaster. There is basically no weapons I would recommend buying from this vendor, which is very unfortunate. And actually, this is definitely one of the vendors you should be taking a look at when the inventories start to rotate, because there's some very powerful guns here, the Parthian Shot, the Angel's Advocate, that just have crap rolls. The one thing maybe you should take a look at is the Teacup Tempest. It's another solid sidearm with a pretty decent roll, Army of One and Zen Moment, and then high caliber rounds, which is excellent, and lastly reactive reload, which can be very potent with sidearms. You reload them very fast, and getting that damage increase is pretty insane. But probably the Wormwood would be better. If you have the choice, buy the Wormwood, but if you don't want that for whatever reason, or you already have one, it is worth taking a look at the Tempest. And so guys, that's gonna wrap up my list of weapons I would recommend taking a look at before they're gone. Your last chance to buy is only these next few days. And so guys, again, if you enjoyed this video and found it informative, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you want to see more Destiny content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, have a good day.